Okay, hello class. Today we'll be learning about adjective clauses and infinitive gerunds. Okay, our content objective, I can identify and use adjective clauses, infinitives, and gerunds. Our language objective, students will listen to presentation and read and write examples over adjective clauses, infinitives, and gerunds. Now, for the sake of the teaching demo, I will not play this video, but this is basically an audiobook of The Boy Who Cried Wolf, which would go with adjective clauses. Okay, so what is an adjective clause? As we saw with the title of the book, The Boy Who Cried Wolf, okay, an adjective clause is additional information about the noun. So our noun would be the boy, and our additional information would be who cried wolf. With the second example, the girl who loves chocolate. Which girl? It's the girl that loves chocolate. It's getting into specific information about the noun. Some more examples. So when we use who or whom, these are going to be used for people. So students who work hard get good grades. So the peoples here are the students, and our relative pronoun is who. And the additional information is work hard, get good grades. When we have the relative pronoun which, it is used for things. For example, Minecraft is a video game that is a thing. The additional information is Minecraft, which is the most popular video game in the world. Okay. The relative pronoun that is used for people or things. In this case, it's being used for people. A person that spends more than 2 hours a day on social media is an addict. Okay. Now we can reduce our adjective clauses. For example, if we have a relative pronoun who, which, that, plus any form of the to be verb, then we will delete our relative pronoun. So students who are working hard get good grades. Students working hard get good grades. So in the first sentence, who gets deleted because we have who plus a form of the to be verb. So we delete the relative pronoun. Okay. Now when we have who, which, that plus a verb, then that verb, the relative pronoun will be removed, and that verb will be added. We'll add the ing to that verb. So a person that spends more than 2 hours a day on social media is an addict. So there's a typo there, it should be n, but a person that spends, so remove the relative pronoun that, and we have a person spending more than 2 hours a day on social media is an addict. Okay, so same thing with infinitives and gerunds. We have a video explaining infinitives and gerunds that we will skip for now. So what is infinitive? Infinitive is a verb with the to at the beginning. So to eat, to run, to talk, to love are all infinitives. Some more examples of infinitives. He wants to eat pupusas with our family. So here the infinitive is being used as a noun. What does he want? He wants this thing, which is to eat pupusas with our family. The decision to love my enemy was difficult. So the infinitive to love is being used as an adjective. It's describing the decision. I called you to talk about our group project. So here is the adverb, infinitive, modifying the verb call. Okay, so now it's your turn. We're going to go back to The Boy Who Cried Wolf, and I want you to look for infinitives. Okay, when you find an infinitive, highlight the infinitives and then label the infinitive, whether it's being used as a noun, an adjective, or an adverb. So in this example, nothing ever happens here. None of my friends come to play. I am the most bored boy in the world, thought the shepherd Munch, munch, munch. Ba, answered the sheep. So the infinitive is in the second sentence, would be to play. And it looks like it's being used as an adverb, modifying the verb come. So this, you will also do the same with your copy of The Boy Who Cried Wolf. Okay, now when it comes to knowing when to add the infinitive, it is about memorization. So here's a list of verbs to memorize that will precede the infinitive. So, for example, I can't afford to buy a Mercedes. Afford is on the list. So after afford, we add an infinitive, to buy. Okay. But I can afford to buy a Toyota. Okay. So now you try. What I can't wait to, and I can wait to. Sometimes another formula for using the infinitive is when we have a verb followed by a noun or pronoun, then we add the infinitive. So in the example below, I convinced my dad to allow me to go to the movies. So the verb would be convinced, the noun would be dad, and then to allow would be the infinitive. Okay, now you try. So who did you convince, and what did you convince them of? Okay, now we're getting to gerunds. Now gerund is basically the verb with the ing, always used as a noun in a sentence. So talking to friends is my favorite thing to do. Okay, my favorite thing to do is this. It's talking to friends. And the question, are you interested in going for a run? What are you interested in? In this specific thing, it's going for a run. They love eating out on weekends. What do they love? They love this thing, which is eating out on weekends. Okay, now it's your turn. Look for gerunds in The Boy Who Cried Wolf. And you're going to highlight every gerund you see. Okay, all the townsfolk came running as fast as they could to help the shepherd boy protect the sheep. They looked everywhere for the wolf. No wolf in the pasture, no wolf on the hill, no wolf in the forest. So in the first sentence, first line, all the townsfolk came running. We have our first gerund. You would do the same in your copy. Like infinitives, gerunds also, it's about memorization. So here are some verbs or expressions which will precede the infinitive. So I can't help drinking coffee in the mornings. So our we have our verb help, and then we have drinking. So there's our gerund, and then we have she practices. Practices on the list. What does she practice? Singing every day. So our gerund is singing. Now you try. He quit. Okay, quit is on the list. So what did he quit?
Hello everyone, my name is Emily DeLu and I'm doing my teaching sample over keys 11 and 12 from False book. These keys are phrasal verbs and modal verbs. Phrasal verbs are verbs that are followed by a position or an adverb and change the meaning of the phrase when you put them together. For example, I can say put down, put off, etc., etc. This makes it a little difficult for EALs to acquire because all the different meanings that it can have. These verbs have 2 or 3 parts to them sometimes, and they also indicate action. Another important thing to know about phrasal verbs is that they are classified between separable and non-separable. Phrasal verbs can be complicated for EALs because it says the text says that the particle floats around the sentence. For example, you can say put away your books, or you can say put your books away. And you can also change that for a pronoun. So you can say put them away, depending on what are you talking about in the sentence and what you're writing about. So this makes it a little complicated for EAL students. Now, there's also intransitive phrasal verbs, and this means that they do not have an object. For example, I can say pass away. and then they follow a pattern, verb, and particle. Key number 12 is modal verbs. These are also auxiliary verbs that help the meaning of the sentence. In the text, Falsey talks about modal verbs giving flavor to the sentences. Some of the examples are should, could, can. Phrasal modal verbs are always together. For example, be going to, ought to, be able to, etc. Some of the reasons why these are difficult for EALs is because they tend to conjugate the modal verb. So they will say something like, I don't, should use. And there is really not something exactly like in other languages sometimes, so it's difficult for them to make connections with prior knowledge. And something really important that I read in the textbook is that modal verbs are very important because they soften a person's speech, and it makes it not so direct. And sometimes in different cultures, when we don't have something like modal verbs, for example in Spanish, you can come across a little rude and direct, and modal verbs can soften your speech. So I thought that was something really important. Now, there's a classification for these verbs in order to be able to teach them. They can be classified in meaning, request, permission, necessity, etc. For that reason, I've chosen to do the lesson on modal verbs. Everybody, we're gonna learn today about modal verbs. Does anybody know what a modal verb is? Okay, well, we're gonna learn together what it is. So our objective for today is this one. By the end of this lesson, I will know how to identify modal verbs, and specifically the modal verb can and could. So now that I said those two words, can and could, can anybody give me an example of how do we use those words? Good, that's a good example. Can I go to the restroom? I hear that question a lot sometimes. Yes, that is a good example of how we use that modal verb. Now, a modal verb is a helper. It's an auxiliary verb. I'm gonna write that fancy word right here. The word auxiliary means a helper. It's a helper to the verb. What it does to the verb is that it makes it softer. It makes it kinder. So instead of saying, I'm going to the restroom, by asking and using the word can, it can be much softer. So now that we know what auxiliary verbs are, like can and could, we are going to watch a short video about how do we use these words in everyday life. Following up the video, the activity will be, I will have a printout of the conversations in the video and all the vocabulary that they used in the video, different scenarios, and they will get into pairs and discuss the meaning of the words according to how they've been used. And also they will create a small presentation for their class according to how I will divide the video. It has different scenarios, so I will assign those for different students. So, what did you think about the video? The video was very helpful or was so-so? Did you like it? Did you find it interesting? Was there a lot of words that you liked? Good, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yes, some of the words were a little difficult. We can talk about those words. At this point, I will write on the board the different words that the students do not know, discuss the vocabulary. In the past, I did have a vocabulary wall where we would put new words and we would keep adding after every lesson. So we would put them in the word wall, and then that way they'll have access to new words, new vocabulary to reinforce it. Okay, so now that we have discussed all the different vocabulary from the videos, I am gonna ask you to get together and we are going to do two things. We are going to classify the modal verbs, and we're going to create a short presentation for your classmates. So I'm going to pair you up and everybody's going to just be divided like this. So I'm going to start A, B. Now all the A students get together and all the B students get together. Great. Okay. So students A, you're going to work on the classification of the verbs. This means that we're going to talk about what kind of auxiliary verb is it. As we studied earlier, we have verbs that ask for ability. Okay. So we're gonna talk about some of these words were the ones that we discussed in our video. So we're going to classify it. So ability is like when we're gonna ask for what we want to do. Permission also talks about can we do this, or is the person able to do certain action. Possibility is that maybe at some point something may happen. And then necessity is when we really need something, okay? So some of this might not be present in your video, but we will discuss it when you do your presentation. Then at this point, the students will do their work, and with each presentation, we will discuss new words. We will discuss classification as well. Basically, doing it together, we will learn the different classifications, the different vocabulary, and how these specific words are used in everyday life. As a add-up activity, we will write sentences in long strips, and then we will play a game of putting the sentence strips together. We will cut them and make like a little puzzle so students can see where in the sentence the auxiliary verb should be placed. And also there will be other videos that represent everyday life where students can also see examples of modal verbs being used. That will be our lesson for today.